Let me ask you something. Have you ever found yourself wishing you could be unshakable, like nothing could touch you? No insult, no betrayal, no silent rejection. You'd just smile, nod, and move on. Strong, controlled, untouchable. We all fantasize about that version of ourselves, the one who doesn't flinch, doesn't cry, doesn't care. But here's the truth I need you to hear. That fantasy is killing you. Because the more you try to become untouchable, the more you bury the part of you that feels. And it's that buried part that keeps whispering at night, when the lights go off, when the noise stops, when no one's around to impress. Have you ever felt that? That ache that has no name? Even when you're laughing, there's something in your chest that stays cold. You smile in the mirror, but you're not really in there. We're told to be strong, to keep it together, to not let them see us break. But what if your strength is not in hiding your pain, but in facing it? You see, the world teaches us that to be respected, we must harden, to not care, to not cry, to be above it all. But Carl Jung, the man who spent his life mapping the soul, believed the opposite. He said, "We are not what happens to us, we are what we choose to become." And that becoming starts when you stop pretending. If you've made it this far, this video is for you. Not the polished version you show the world, but the real one beneath it. The one who's tired of acting strong when all they want is to finally breathe. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here with you, because I know what it feels like to walk around with that invisible weight. To be tired of wearing the mask that says, "I'm fine," when really, you're just tired. Tired of performing. Tired of always being the strong one. Tired of fighting battles no one else can see. So let me tell you something you may have never heard before. You don't have to keep performing. You don't have to be bulletproof to be worthy. You don't have to carry the world just to prove you're strong. What you do need is honesty, with yourself, with your pain, with the parts of you you've tried to outgrow, outrun, or overwrite. Because here's the paradox. The more you avoid pain, the more it controls you. The more you numb, the more it haunts you. But when you turn toward it, even trembling, you begin to reclaim something no performance can give you, yourself. And that's where this journey begins. Let me ask you a difficult question. Why does it still hurt? Why do words, careless or cruel, still echo in your chest? Why does silence feel like punishment? Why does rejection, even when expected, still sting? You might say, because of what they did. Because I was betrayed. Because I wasn't seen or heard or chosen. And I hear you, I really do. But what if I told you that the pain you feel isn't coming from them? I know how strange that sounds, but stay with me, because this may be the most important truth of this entire journey. It's not the action, it's the wound it touches. Let that sink in for a moment. Two people can go through the same experience. One breaks apart, the other barely flinches. Why? Because pain doesn't live in the world, it lives in us. And what hurts is not always what was said, but what it awakened. An old memory, a hidden shame, a story you've been carrying for so long you don't even question it anymore. We all walk around with these open wounds. Some are fresh, some are ancient, but we hide them beneath strength, pride, and the desperate performance of "I'm okay." And then someone says something, does something, leaves, and the wound screams. But here's what no one teaches us. Those wounds aren't weakness, they're maps. Carl Jung believed that pain reveals the parts of ourselves we haven't yet integrated. The shadows, the forgotten child, the voice that was never allowed to speak. So if you're still suffering, if you feel like everyone else has power over your emotions, maybe it's not because you're broken. Maybe it's because you're unfinished. That ache, that emotional flash, that spiral of overthinking, they're not flaws, they're signals, clues. And if you listen, really listen, They'll guide you right to the place where healing can begin. But first, you'll have to give up something you may still be clinging to: control. That belief that if you're just good enough, strong enough, kind enough, they won't hurt you. But you've seen how that ends. You still get hurt, because control is an illusion, and the more you chase it, the more tense, reactive, and vulnerable you become. You don't need more control, you need more awareness. The moment you realize that nothing from outside has power unless it echoes something inside, that's the moment you begin to wake up. And that's where we're heading next, into the place where all real change begins, the unconscious. Ready to go deeper? If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. So now that we've begun to peel back the layers, let me ask you something even more important. Who's really making your decisions? I don't mean the ones you post about, not the choices you explain to friends or defend with logic. I mean the silent ones, the sudden outbursts, the withdrawals, the way you pull back when someone gets too close or sabotage something just as it begins to go well. You ever wonder, why do I keep doing this to myself? The answer isn't out there. It's not in your job, not in your ex, not even in the way your childhood unfolded. It's in here, the unseen space within you, a place Jung called the unconscious. Now, when people hear unconscious, they think of something vague or mystical, but for Jung, it was precise. It was the sum total of everything you are but have refused to face. Old memories, buried shame, trauma, desires you were told not to have, fears you never spoke aloud. The unconscious isn't asleep, it's alive, and it has been running the show from backstage. That quick flash of rage, that deep anxiety that makes no sense, the pattern you keep repeating over and over. None of it is random. It's your unconscious, trying to wake you up. But because you haven't looked at it, you can't understand it. So you call it fate. You say, that's just how I am. You start believing that life just happens to you. But that's not true. You're not cursed. You're just unaware. And what you are unaware of masters you. Think about that. You can only defend yourself against what you can see. But if the enemy is inside you and invisible, how do you fight? You don't. You observe. You witness. You listen to the messages that come from your pain. Because every emotional trigger, every irrational spiral, every sharp overreaction is not an error. It's a flashlight, pointing to what hasn't yet been healed. But most people don't look. They distract. They numb. They blame. So they stay trapped in cycles of pain, sabotage, regret, repeat. But if you're here, still watching, still feeling, then you're not most people. You're ready to see it, to step off autopilot, to stop being a puppet of your emotion and start becoming its witness, because only then can you choose. And that's what we'll explore next, what it truly means to become untouchable, not by resisting pain, but by integrating everything you've hidden from. Ready? What does it really mean to be untouchable? Because maybe you've been chasing the wrong kind of strength. We're taught that strength means being unaffected, unbothered, stone-faced, that if we feel too much, care too deeply, or cry too easily, we've somehow failed. But let me ask you, has pretending ever truly made you stronger? Or has it just made you tired? You see, becoming untouchable isn't about building thicker walls. It's not about shutting down or being numb. That's not strength, that's defense. And defenses are built by fear, not power. True strength is something else entirely. It's the ability to stay open, even when it hurts, to feel everything and still remain centered, to say, yes, I'm bleeding, but I know who I am. That's a different kind of invincibility, and it only comes from one place: integration. Integration is when you stop cutting off parts of yourself just to be acceptable. It's when you stop silencing the insecure voice, the frightened voice, the angry voice, and start listening. Because here's the paradox. What you suppress doesn't disappear. It festers, it waits, it lashes out when you least expect it. But when you bring it to the light, when you look it in the eye, it loses its power. That's what Jung meant by shadow work. Not to destroy the shadow, but to understand it, to bring it home. You don't become untouchable by being above your pain. You become untouchable when nothing inside you is foreign anymore. When your shame is no longer your enemy. When your fear no longer needs to hide. When your rage has a place to speak without burning everything down, because you're no longer scared of yourself. Let me say that again. You're no longer scared of yourself. That's what real emotional freedom feels like. You stop reacting to every insult. You stop trying to control how others see you. You stop chasing validation like it's oxygen. You begin to live from the inside out, not the outside in. This is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, not who they want you to be, not who you pretend to be, not even who you thought you had to be to survive, but the one that emerges when ego and shadow finally meet, and you realize you were never broken, just divided. And now you're coming home. But this path, this integration, isn't easy. It's not safe, and it definitely isn't painless. In the next part, we'll talk about the part no one prepares you for, the sacred role of suffering. You ready to go there? You were never taught how to suffer. You were taught to avoid it, to numb it, to cover it with smiles, distractions, productivity, strength. From a young age, you learned that pain was weakness, that crying made you soft, that sadness was something to snap out of. So you ran, you filled your time, you kept busy, you stayed strong. But tell me honestly, has any of that made the pain go away? Because here's the truth no one told you. What you avoid doesn't vanish. It burrows. It tunnels beneath your smile. It hides behind your achievements. It whispers through your relationships, your fears, your silence. And then one day, everything collapses. Anxiety, burnout, that hollow emptiness that shows up even when life looks fine. Why? Because suffering, when ignored, doesn't fade. It transforms. It puts on new masks: anger, numbness, addiction, apathy. But Jung, he saw suffering differently. He didn't treat it like a glitch in the system. He saw it as a message. He said, "Depression is like a lady in black. If she appears, don't shoo her away. Invite her in. Sit with her. Listen to what she has to say." Can you do that? Can you sit with your pain without running? Because beneath that suffering, yes, beneath the tears, the weight, the ache in your chest, there is something sacred. Your pain is not here to destroy you. It's here to wake you up. You see, pain is the signal that something in you is ready to change, ready to evolve, ready to shed its skin. But your ego doesn't like change. It prefers control. It clings to the familiar, even if it's hurting you. And that's where the real war begins. Not between you and the world, but between the part of you that wants to grow and the part that wants to stay safe. That's the friction. That's the suffering. You're not just in pain, you're being transformed. And yes, transformation hurts. Letting go of identities, cutting ties that once felt like home, questioning everything you thought made you lovable. But in that destruction, there's also freedom. Because when the mask falls, when the walls collapse, when there's nothing left to hide behind, you finally meet yourself. And that moment, raw, exposed, real, is the beginning of becoming whole. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real. So don't run from the pain. Bow to it. Listen to it. Let it burn what no longer serves you. because what's born from those ashes is you. In the next part, we'll talk about what this transformation looks like, not in theory, but in practice. The valley you must walk to become free. You've come this far. Let's keep going. By now, you know this isn't a feel-good journey. And I won't lie to you, what comes next is the hardest part. Because once you stop running from pain, you have to walk through it. This is what Jung called individuation, the path of becoming your true self. Not the version of you shaped by survival, not the mask you wear to be liked, not the collection of roles you perform so well, but you, stripped bare. And here's what no one tells you. This journey will cost you everything that isn't real. You'll start to see just how much of your identity was built on fear. Fear of rejection, fear of not being enough, fear of being truly seen. And as that illusion begins to crumble, something terrifying happens. You lose control. You start to question, who am I without their approval, without my accomplishments, without this image I've curated for years? You see, individuation is not a gentle blooming, it's a dismantling, a tearing down of the false so the true can emerge. And it hurts, not because something is going wrong, but because something is finally going right. You're not breaking down, you're breaking open. But here's the lonely truth. Few people will walk this valley with you. Most are still clinging to comfort, to roles, to the performance. And when you begin to shed those layers, they won't understand. You may feel isolated, misunderstood, like you're losing the world you once belonged to. But listen to me closely. You are not losing yourself. You're finding it. You're stepping out of the collective illusion, out of the noise, out of the endless cycle of pretending. You no longer fit where you used to hide, and that's a sign of growth, not failure. Jung called this the dissolution of the persona, the collapse of the mask we wear to belong. It's brutal, but it's also the beginning of real inner peace. Because when you no longer need to be liked, admired, or validated, when you stop chasing identity in other people's eyes, you start building something unshakable within. Not a shell, not armor, but a center, a grounded, conscious whole self, one that can weather rejection, loss, and loneliness without crumbling, because you no longer measure your worth by anything outside of you. This valley isn't punishment, it's passage. You're not falling apart, you're falling into place. And as we move into the next part, we'll talk about what truly protects you, not strength, but clarity. Let's keep going. Let's talk about protection. Not the kind made of walls, silence, or pretending not to care. Not the type that makes you numb, cold, distant. That's not protection, that's paralysis. Real protection, the kind that keeps you rooted when the storm comes, doesn't come from strength. It comes from clarity. You see, most people spend their lives trying to protect themselves from the outside, from criticism, from abandonment, from being misunderstood. But what if I told you, it's not the world that's hurting you, it's the echo it finds within you. That's where the real danger lives, and that's also where the real freedom begins. Because when you become conscious, when you know your wounds, your patterns, your triggers, nothing can surprise you anymore. Words still sting, sure, but they don't control you. Loss still hurts, but it doesn't dismantle you. You remain whole even when life breaks open, because you've seen yourself, all of you, the beautiful and the brutal, and you've stopped fighting it. That's what Jung meant when he said, "What you resist persists." The more you resist your pain, the louder it becomes. The more you deny your shadow, the more it controls you. But what you accept transforms. So here's the secret no one told you. You don't become safe by building armor. You become safe by becoming aware. When you finally understand, this pain I feel, I know where it comes from. This fear, I've seen it before and I know how to hold it. This anger, it's not who I am, it's what I've carried. That's when the world loses its grip on you, because you're no longer a puppet to your unconscious. You're no longer reacting, you're responding from a place of center. Think of it like this. People who live on the surface get crushed by every wave, but those who dive deep, they find the stillness beneath it all. That stillness, that's you, the part of you that watches, witnesses, understands. That's the self Jung spoke of, the calm center beneath the chaos. And when you live from that place, you don't need to be liked, you don't need to win, you don't need to prove, you just are. And no one can take that from you, but to live there, to stay there, takes practice, daily attention, radical honesty, because awakening isn't a moment, it's a discipline. And in the next and final part of this journey, we'll talk about what it means to live that way, not just surviving, but finally, fully awakening. Let's finish this together. You've made it this far, and that means something, because most people, they stop at the edge, right when it starts to get real, right when the masks fall, right when the truth begins to sting. But not you. You kept going, and now we arrive here, not at the end of the journey, but at the beginning of a different life, one lived from within. So let's get honest. Awakening is not a single event. It's not fireworks. It's not enlightenment in a flash of light. It's a daily choice. It's waking up every morning and saying, I will not abandon myself today. I will not numb what hurts just to appear strong. I will not give my power away in exchange for validation. Awakening is responsibility. It's owning every emotion, every pattern, every shadow, not to blame yourself, but to free yourself. Because the moment you stop waiting for the world to change is the moment you begin to change yourself. And when you change, everything else begins to shift. Carl Jung said, what you resist persists. What you accept transforms. You've spent years resisting the fear of not being enough, the shame of being seen, the emptiness of loneliness, the ache of rejection, and in that resistance, you've suffered. But now you know, the suffering wasn't a punishment, it was a portal, a threshold, every trigger, a doorway, every heartbreak, a mirror, every collapse, a sacred invitation. So now I ask you, will you accept it? Will you stop surviving by pretending to be strong and start living by choosing to be real? Because clarity is the new immunity, not a wall that keeps pain out, but an understanding that no longer lets pain define you. You still feel, of course you do, you still bleed, but you don't drown anymore. That's what changes everything. And the best part, no one can give this to you, and no one can take it away, because it's yours, built from your ruins, grown in the soil of your suffering, forged in the silence where no one was watching. You are no longer a collection of reactions. You are no longer shaped by the world's treatment of you. You are whole, you are awake, and the world no longer knows where to strike, because what's been embraced inside can't be shattered from the outside. If this journey spoke to something in you, drop a comment below. I choose awareness. Let's start something real, a movement of people who no longer want to perform strength, but to live with truth. And if you're ready, the next step is waiting, not out there, in here.